The garden's poison mirrors our hearts.
Then let it consume us.
A tale of poisoned love.
Good evening, wanderers of the shadows. I'm Felix Lubezki, your host, here tonight at the Chamber of Poisons and Potions. That's not correct. No, sorry. I'm here at Porcelain and Poison. But sip slowly. The dolls are watching. The sound, shadows, and shared environment settings on is highly encouraged and recommended for best effect. Also, feel free to write inside the guest book or send mail to the mailbox. The landmark will be located in the description below. I would like to thank the owners of Porcelain and Poison for allowing me to host this story today. And now that I've butchered the shit out of that, on we go. Tonight, from the depths of this crimson lair, we delve into a tale of forbidden science, deadly beauty, and the venomous kiss of fate. Nathaniel Hawthorne's Rappaccini's Daughter, a story where love blooms amidst poison and knowledge devours the soul. Settle in, but beware. One breath too close, and you may never leave unchanged. From the writings of Pine, we do not remember to have seen any translated specimens of the productions of M. de Pine. A fact the less to be wondered at, as his very name is unknown to many of his own countrymen, as well as to the student of foreign literature. As a writer, he seems to occupy an unfortunate position between the transcendentalists who, under the one name or another, have their share in all the current literature of the world, and the great body of pen and ink men who address the intellect and sympathies of the multitude. If not too refined, at all events too remote, too shadowy, and unsubstantial in his modes of development to suit the taste of critics, he is likewise too popular to satisfy the spiritual or metaphysical requisitions of the multitude. He therefore makes no demand upon the public mind, and is rarely read except by those who delight in the weird and supernatural. His subjects are usually taken from the domain of the imagination and are worked up with great power and originality. The tale we are about to relate is one of the best he has written. It is called Rappaccini's Daughter, and is said to have been translated from the French. A young man named Giovanni Giosaconti came very long ago from the more southern region of Italy to pursue his studies at the University of Padua. Giovanni was the son of an ancient family, but he was lodged in a high and gloomy chamber of an old edifice which looked not unworthy to have been the palace of a Paduan noble, and which in fact might have been the residence of one. The young stranger, who was not unstudied in the great poem of his country, recalled the lines of Dante in describing the place. The building was of very ancient date. It had once perhaps been a noble palace, but was now divided into mean tenements, and the portion occupied by Giovanni was the upper story of one of the towers. The window of his room looked into a garden, a spot of ground choicely planted with flowers and shrubs, but surrounded by walls so high that the sunshine could only fall into it where the sun was in the zenith. This garden was cultivated with the greatest care, and contained plants of rare and beautiful kinds, some of them evidently brought from distant countries. Among them, the young man noticed one shrub in particular, which stood in the center of the garden, in a marble vase, in the midst of which grew a profusion of purple blossoms, each of which had the luster and richness of a gem. The plant seemed worthy of closer observation, but Giovanni, after gazing at it attentively, turned away with a shudder, though he knew not why. The garden belonged to a famous doctor named Giacomo Rappaccini, who is said to have greater knowledge of the secrets of nature than any man living. He was a tall, emaciated, sallow man, with a face furrowed by thought and study, and eyes that gleamed with an intense and piercing light. He spent too much time in the garden, tending the plants with his own hands, and seemed to regard them as his children. One day, as Giovanni was looking from his window into the garden, he saw a beautiful young girl come out of the house. She was dressed in a simple white garment, and her hair fell in dark curls around her neck. She approached the purple shrub, and seemed to embrace it with her arms, and press its blossoms to her bosom, as if it were a beloved sister. Then she went from plant to plant, tending them with affectionate care, and seemed to commune with them as if they were living beings. Giovanni was struck with her beauty, and felt a strange thrill at his heart as he watched her. He leaned from the window, but she did not see him, and soon returned to the house. From that day, Giovanni watched the garden constantly, hoping to see the beautiful girl again. He learned that she was Beatrice, the daughter of Dr. Rappaccini, and that she never left the garden. He saw her father teaching her the properties of the plants, and heard him say that she was already as learned as he in the secrets of nature. Giovanni's room was so high that he could look down into the garden without being seen, and he spent many hours watching Beatrice. He saw that all the insects that flew into the garden died when they touched the leaves or blossoms of the plants, and that a lizard which ran across the path dropped dead when Beatrice breathed upon it. He saw, too, that Beatrice herself seemed to be imbued with the poisonous nature of the plants, for when she breathed upon a bouquet of flowers that her father gave her, they wilted in her hand. Giovanni was horrified, but he could not keep away from the window. He fell deeply in love with Beatrice and longed to speak to her. One day, when her father was absent, he threw a bouquet of flowers into the garden and called to her. Beatrice looked up, and their eyes met. She blushed and smiled and thanked him for the flowers. From that day, they talked together every day, Giovanni from his window, Beatrice from the garden. They grew to love each other, but Beatrice warned him not to try to enter the garden, for it would be death to him. But Giovanni could not stay away. One day he found a secret entrance to the garden and entered it. Beatrice was terrified when she saw him and begged him to leave, but he refused. He took her hand, and she did not draw away. From that day, Giovanni visited the garden every day and spent hours with Beatrice. He noticed that he was changing. His breath wilted flowers, and he killed insects with a touch. He realized that he was becoming like Beatrice, imbued with the poison of the garden. He accused Beatrice of making him a monster, but she wept and said that it was her father who had made her so, by raising her among the poisonous plants from infancy, so that she might be his assistant in his experiments, and that no one could come near her without becoming poisoned too. Giovanni was filled with horror and anger. He went to a famous scientist named Baglioni, who was a friend of his father's, and told him the story. Baglioni gave him a vial of antidote, saying that it would cure Beatrice of the poison. Giovanni took the vial to Beatrice and told her to drink it. She saw the doubt in his eyes, and said that if he doubted her love, she would drink it to prove it. She drank the antidote and fell to the ground. Rappaccini came into the garden and saw what happened. He was overjoyed, thinking that Giovanni had become like Beatrice, and that they could live together in the garden. But Beatrice, dying, said to her father, "Why did you do this to me? I would have been so happy in the world outside with love and sunshine, but you have made me a thing of poison, and now I die." She died, and Giovanni and Rappaccini were left alone in the garden. And so ends the tragedy of Rappaccini's daughter. A warning from the vials of ambition. In this room of poisons and potions, remember, some elixirs heal, others curse. Join me next time for more tales from the abyss. And again, I'd like to thank the owners of Porcelain and Poison for allowing me to host this story here tonight. And again, sip slowly. The dolls are watching. Good night.